Welcome to our online worship experience. We are so honored that you've chosen to worship with us today. If we haven't met yet, my name is Amy, and I'm the Discipleship Director here at Hillsboro. I want to let you know that we have some really awesome things in store for you today during worship. When we kick things off in just a few minutes, we invite you to sing along, to pray, to bring your heart before God as we worship together. And for kids who are joining us today, we are particularly glad that you're here, and we hope that you'll stay tuned for a portion of worship called Kids TV that is just for you. For those of you who've been worshiping with us online these past few months, you're already familiar with one of the things that we would love for you to do today. We would absolutely appreciate if you would share worship with your friends and with your family. Y'all do such a great job with this, and I absolutely love seeing our live stream pop up all over Facebook on Sunday mornings and on Sunday evenings. If you're brand new to worshiping with Hillsboro, we want to especially welcome you today. Maybe you've arrived here through an invitation from someone who's already part of Hillsboro, or maybe you happen to notice our live stream on Facebook or YouTube. However you happen to join us today, we are so grateful for your presence. We believe that faith is a journey, one that we continue on all throughout our lives, that there are mountaintop experiences and moments in time when we walk through valleys. So wherever you are this morning, we would be honored to walk alongside you, to pray with you, to get to know you, to support you on your walk of faith. It would be great if you would fill out our digital Connect card so that we could begin that conversation with you, so that we can support you and so that we can get to know you. We also love to use this time before worship begins to let you know about some of our important announcements. First today, we want to let you know that Shane, Stephen, and I will be taking a little bit of time to rest, to recharge this week. And so because of that, there will be no solidarity service this Wednesday. We'll pick that back up on Wednesday, July 1st at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And if you'd like more information about our solidarity services, head over to hbro.org/solidarity. Though we will be taking a little bit of time in the coming days, we want to make sure that you know that if any pastoral care concerns come up for you this week, that Shane and I are absolutely available for you. You can still reach us by calling the church office. We have our phones set up so that they will dial straight through to us no matter where we are. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Second, we invite each of you to head over to our website at hbro.org/forward to see some very important information about our phased reopening strategy that we have in place as we move into the future together. Not only will you get some important information there, but you'll also see a survey on the page that we would love for you to fill out in the coming days. We care so deeply for each and every one of you, and we want to use this survey as an opportunity to check in with you, to hear how you're doing, and to understand how we can better walk through this season with you. Again, that's hbro.org/forward. Finally, in these last few minutes before worship, let's jump into a little question and answer time. You all are so awesome at using the chat during worship, and I always look forward to hearing from you before we kick things off. So last week, Shane asked you what your favorite summertime activity is, and we heard about a whole lot of really fun outdoor activities. Today, I want to build on that question just a little bit with a slightly different one. I'm curious, what is your favorite summertime food? What is the one thing that maybe if you were at a barbecue, that would be the first thing that you would reach for? This past week, Chance, Addie, and I set up a bonfire in our backyard so that we could roast some marshmallows and make some s'mores. And wow, that sure felt like summer to me. Now, I'll tell you, my family thinks I'm a little bit strange with my s'mores fandom, because you see, I eat mine without chocolate. I know that there are some very big chocolate fans in our midst, but I just can't possibly handle all of that sweetness. So what about you? What is your favorite summertime food? Let us know in the chat as we count down the last couple minutes before worship begins, and then we'll see you back here in just a little bit. If you're just joining us today, welcome. We are sincerely grateful that you are here. We understand that each of us comes to this time of worship in unique ways. Maybe today you need forgiveness, or maybe you need to forgive. Maybe you're tired and you need a little space to breathe. Maybe you're trying church for the very first time, or maybe today you're trying church for the last time. Maybe you've spent your whole life wondering if God really loves you. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're feeling sick. But maybe with God, there is hope and healing and miraculous companionship. Maybe with God, there is space to breathe and forgiveness on top of forgiveness. Maybe with God, there is love. Maybe with God, here in each of our midst, in each of our homes, we will hear those words that still split open the heavens. You are my child. You are my beloved. You are the pride of my life. In you, I am well pleased. Maybe this is why we gather together week after week after week, even when gathering looks like a screen in front of you, words in a chat and profile pictures in a row. To be reminded that no matter who you are, without regard to race, ethnic or cultural background, social status, gender, sexual orientation, age, education, or even political affiliation, you are welcomed and you are loved by the God who revealed herself in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. For God welcomes and loves everyone, and we as a community strive to do the same. So it is in this spirit that we welcome you today. And many of you have likely already said hello in the chat, but now you're invited to welcome one another in a very particular way, to speak a word of peace during our sharing of the peace of Christ. May we speak it today as a prayer welling up out of the deep need for peace in our own lives, our homes, our families, our community, our nation, and our whole world. May we slow down in this moment and seek out the peace that Christ provides so that we may become peacemakers for ourselves and others, not only in this moment, but in all of our days. May the peace of Christ be with you.
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not a one. No, not one. None else could heal all our souls' diseases. No, not one. No, not one.
I read this week that gratitude isn't only a celebration when good things happen. Gratitude is a declaration that God is good no matter what happens. Those words were such an important reminder for me this week of God's abiding presence in the world that I wanted to lift them up to you today as well. I know that some weeks the things that we are grateful for may not be at the very forefront of our minds, that sometimes even the good things in our lives can get covered over by fear or worry, by the events of the day, by the true and understandable concerns that we have. So I am thankful for this time carved out in worship each week, where we're not only invited to think about what we are personally grateful for, but it's a time that we get to hear what others are grateful for as well, to hold those things up for one another and to celebrate them. For me, and I hope you as well, it is a time of joy shared, a time of hope offered, and a time of contemplation about all the good that continues to be in our lives and in our world. If you were able to join us even for a few minutes this week at our first ever virtual VBS Nights of North Castle, you may have a hunch that one of my biggest points of gratitude this week comes in the form of all the people who made this program possible for children, both near and far. When Shane and I first started talking about what VBS might look like this summer back maybe in late April, we both felt like it was something that we wanted to do, but like so many other things in this season of life, we weren't quite sure how it would look, how VBS could take shape in an all-digital format. Then we were gifted with so many folks who were eager and happy to jump in and to make it actually possible. For our armorer, Ella Swan, and her brother Noah, who played our Arctic dragon, Sparky, for the laughter and joy that they both brought as they walked our nights through all 5 days. For Noah Rostweicher, who wanted to make sure that he could get in to help before he headed out on a road trip with some friends celebrating his own high school graduation. For our court musicians, Cindy Bloom, Steve Morris, and our own director of music, Stephen Nix. They danced and sang with wild abandon and brought lots of smiles this week. They had Addie and I up singing and dancing along each day. After speaking of my daughter Addie, I have to mention too that she helped every day with each of our quests, with making the crafts come to life. We have a joke in our house that sometimes you might be voluntold instead of volunteering. But no matter how many times I ask her to help, she does it with the same sweet spirit that she does pretty much everything. I'm also so grateful for Shane, who was in charge of taking all of our video, and it was quite lengthy, and editing it into something that came to life in a way that truly only he could. And last but certainly not least, I'm so grateful for all the families, for all the kids who were able to participate this week. And after all of this, if you're feeling like maybe you missed out on the fun, don't worry about that. We have all of our days of VBS archived on our YouTube page, so feel free to check them out. You can catch up on all of Sparky's jokes, there were a lot, and Noah's laughter that accompanied them.
Ha 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 ha.
So that's what I'm most grateful for today. How about you? Share with us in the chat. We would love to know and share in that joy with you. What are you grateful for today? And while you're sharing that, I'd also like to encourage you to be financially connected with Hillsboro. We've made it very easy to make a one-time or recurring donation by simply heading over to our website, hboro.org/give. If you prefer writing checks, that's great too. You can mail them directly to the church office. However you choose to give, please know that we are so grateful.
Listen now for the word of God from Matthew 10:24 through 39. Disciples aren't greater than their teacher, and slaves aren't greater than their master. It's enough for disciples to be like their teacher and slaves like their master. If they have called the head of the house Beelzebul, it's certain that they will call the members of his household by even worse names. Therefore, don't be afraid of these people, because nothing is hidden that won't be revealed, and nothing secret that won't be brought out into the open. What I say to you in the darkness, tell in the light. What you hear whispered, announce from the rooftops. Don't be afraid of those who kill the body but can't kill the soul. Instead, be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell. Aren't 2 sparrows sold for a small coin? But not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father knowing about it already. Even the hairs of your head are all counted. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Therefore, everyone who acknowledges me before people, I also will acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But everyone who denies me before people, I will also deny before my Father who is in heaven. Don't think that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I haven't come to bring peace, but a sword. I've come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. People's enemies are members of their own households. Those who love father or mother more than me aren't worthy of me. Those who love son or daughter more than me aren't worthy of me. Those who don't pick up their crosses and follow me aren't worthy of me. Those who find their lives will lose them, and those who lose their lives because of me will find them. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Every time I hear or read those passages from Matthew we just heard, I immediately begin thinking about my time in college. You see, I went to this small liberal arts college, and during my time there, I played in a couple different bands. I went through this phase where I played guitar and sang in a ska band. You know, that style of music that was popular for about 30 seconds in the late 90s that tried to mash up punk rock with reggae. You know, if you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, count yourself lucky. Lucky that ska didn't come into your Tinder life and make you think what the world really needed was men wearing zoot suits and singing in fake British accents. Because our school was so small, there was always a bit of rivalry between the other bands on campus. There was the grunge band, the folk band, the wannabe Dave Matthews band, and of course there was the Christian band. There's a little known secret with Christian bands. The key to be a successful one that is worth their salt, is to have a biblical name that isn't too obvious. You can't name your Christian band Jesus Wept or Balaam's Donkey or The Binding of Isaac. But can we be honest for a second? I do have to admit, The Binding of Isaac would actually be a pretty awesome name for a heavy metal Christian band. The reason you got to be careful with those Christian band names is because you want to pass off as a regular band from time to time. Plus, you want people to ask you what your band name means, and boom, let the evangelism begin. Brother, we got some souls to save. The obscure biblical reference this particular band from my college chose comes from today's reading from Matthew 10. It's there in verse 29. It says, "Aren't 2 sparrows sold for a penny?" Now, I don't know much about the ancient bird market as much as I used to, but Jesus seems to have a pretty firm grasp on things. But sitting here from my perspective, you know what? It seems like a heck of a deal. 2 birds for just a penny? Just think about the army of birds you could raise from just the change in your car's cup holder. If I did, it'd cause quite the stir in my neighborhood. And somebody'd knock at my door, "Excuse me, Mr. Smith, you appear to be keeping an extraordinary amount of birds in your backyard." And I feel it's my duty to inform you that this is a clear violation of our HOA agreement. You're going to have to do something about those birds, or I fear I'm going to have to call and report you to the HOA board. And I could respond, "Look, do you really want to be threatening a guy who's got $6.48 worth of birds in his backyard? I don't think so." Jesus is trying to make this powerful point about just how much human beings are valued by God. God knows everything there is to know about each sparrow's individual life, and God cares for them, but we're worth so much more than a sparrow. And it's a beautiful gospel truth summed up right there, simply just using 2 birds that cost a penny. The problem with this name that this rival band chose for themselves is that they didn't get the bird economics exactly right, because they named themselves 2 Penny Sparrow. Whenever our band saw them play in public, we would look at each other and say, "That's one expensive bird. I could get 4 birds for the price of just one of them." They really need to check their bird math. One of those things they don't tell you in seminary is that preaching is a great way to work out your petty college grievances. These strange verses in Matthew, verses about disciples and teachers, Beelzebul and birds, and sons turning against fathers and daughters against mothers, they're all about Jesus setting expectations for what it means to be his disciple. That word disciple, it actually just means learner. It's so easy for us to be consumed by all the goals and missions and things we think God and Jesus want us to do and to accomplish. But in the end, there's only one thing Jesus asks of us: to come follow him, learn from him, learn what it takes to be like him, be his disciple. Here in these passages in Matthew, Jesus is laying out what to expect when you faithfully take up that task of following him. Simply put, following Jesus is no walk in the park. In the same way we've sanitized the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, where we point to the inspiration and uplifting words, but we forget his plan of direct action was confrontational, and that his sharpest words were for white moderate Christians, whom he said were a greater stumbling block to the black community than the Ku Klux Klan, because they were devoted to order more than justice. In his letter from the Birmingham jail, Dr. King said that white moderates prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. They constantly say, "I agree with you on the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action." Who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. We've taken the real-life Dr. King and replaced him with a new creation, an inspirational figure who tells us everything is going to be okay. It tells me that we should read passages like these from Matthew much more carefully, to chew on them a little bit more so we don't miss the flavors in them. We should learn to sit with the cold reality that Jesus is presenting here. Hear those words again. Don't think I've come to bring peace to the earth, because I haven't. I've come to bring a sword. I've come to turn a son against his dad, a daughter against her mom. When you follow me, members of your own household are going to become your enemies. You want to be worthy of me as your teacher, your rabbi, your savior? Then you can't love your parents more than me. You can't love your children more than me. And if you don't pick up your cross, your electric chair, your firing squad, your lethal injection, then you aren't worthy of me. If you're trying to find your life, you're going to lose it. But those whose lives revolve around me will find everlasting life. Sit with those words for a moment. Don't get the idea that I've come to bring peace on earth, because I haven't. In some ways, Matthew takes the easy way out. Luke goes all Emeril Lagasse and kicks it up a notch in his version of this part of the gospel. Luke says that Jesus says, "Whoever comes to me and doesn't hate father and mother, spouse and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even one's own life, they can't be my disciple. Sit with those words. Whoever doesn't hate parents, their spouse, their children, their siblings, even their own lives. Now let's be clear here. Jesus isn't advocating for a big family fight the second this live stream ends. He's not saying, unless you kick your kids out of the house, you can't be my disciples. He's not arguing that antipathy for one's own parents is a virtue. Truth be told, Ashley, Everly, and I have traveled to stay with my parents this weekend, and I'm probably watching this live stream this very moment with my mortal enemies, Steve and Phyllis Smith. I'll probably even see that villain known as my sister Sarah quite a bit this week. No, Jesus is neither prescribing nor condoning horrific relationships with family members. But what he is doing is helping those first disciples understand what is likely to happen if they continue to follow his teachings. Here and in countless other places in the gospel, Jesus blows up that image of a predictable, innocuous do-gooder. His goal isn't for everyone to get along. His goal wasn't to be some inspirational, enlightened, affirming nice guy. You know, the one that we insist on imagining him to be? If that was his goal, to be the ultimate nice guy, he did a pretty terrible job at it when he whipped people out of the temple, the money changers out of the temple as an act of protest. If he was such a nice guy, why did people call him the Prince of Demons? If he was such a nice guy, how on earth did he end up on a cross? No, the peace that Jesus was pursuing wasn't the absence of violence or conflict. It was peace that brought with it justice and wholeness. Most of us have never had to worry that calling Jesus Lord might alienate us from our families. But that was the reality of the early church. That was their reality for centuries until widespread persecution of the church had ended by Constantine in the 4th century. So that element of the text is probably never going to find resonance with many of us. But here is where this passage gets particularly challenging for us. In setting these expectations for being his disciple, Jesus is challenging us to see that the absence of conflict is not a good indicator of faithfulness. Your discomfort with someone's actions or beliefs is not a reliable measure of being right. Show me a church where everyone gets along kumbaya and everything is as cool as the other side of the pillow, and I'll show you a church that might not be pursuing the good news as much as they think they are. Jesus loved in a way that no other person had ever loved, taught with authority rivaled by no other teacher, lived a life that was perfect, and we killed him. The absence of conflict is not an indicator of faithfulness. The goal of this new kingdom Jesus is bringing with him is not for everyone to get along. It's not even egalitarian or even simple majority rule. It is an upside-down kingdom where the voices of the marginalized are amplified. It's an upside-down kingdom where the rich, the powerful, and the privileged are brought down from their thrones and sent away empty. May we, as disciples of Jesus Christ, by the grace of God, learn to pursue above all things peace, that true peace that comes with justice. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. This past Wednesday night, I shared on our live stream a little bit about where we find ourselves as a church amidst this evolving COVID-19 pandemic. It was the first step in a conversation about how we as a church move forward together in this pandemic. We launched a congregational survey to learn more about how you have been holding up and how we might better address your spiritual needs in the coming weeks and months. If you've not had a chance to participate in that subject, we'd love for you to take a few moments and share with us your experience. You'll see a link to that survey right here on the screen. Wednesday night, I shared that we feel blessed that Hillsborough Presbyterian remains on firm financial ground due to steady giving, a sizable emergency fund, and being debt-free. And despite these being uncertain times, we are fortunate to have the opportunity to continue doing impactful ministry and even expanding our reach throughout this season of distancing and beyond. Our community has grown quite a bit over the past 3 months, as many new folks have found their way to our live stream and walked away feeling encouraged, having encountered God in their experience. By and large, our congregation has done a fantastic job of transitioning into this new way of being and doing church, but that doesn't mean everyone within our community is okay. It's a perfectly normal response to be struggling with fear and anxiety and isolation throughout this pandemic. Those are normal responses to an abnormal and traumatic situation. I've experienced them all myself, and if you're like me, you begin to notice that they come in cycles, where fear and anxiety and anger or frustration just find a way to creep back in, even on those days when everything feels okay. Life goes on even though we feel frozen in our homes. We as a congregation have experienced multiple deaths within our congregation during this time. And what's so frustrating is the pain of that has been compounded because we have been unable to mourn the way we want to. Believe me, we're going to celebrate these cherished lives together when we can, but that doesn't change the fact that we want to mourn and remember them together now. You see, we need weekly rhythms and rituals to center us on God and community. And while we are finding those new rhythms in our homes, they can still feel inadequate at times. We need that. We need things like hugs and high fives and sharing the peace of Christ that goes on forever. Those are things that make us feel connected, that give us a sense of place and belonging. And even though we get a little bit of that back, doing church online, virtually, we certainly can miss the real thing. So how do we move forward together? I think it's important that we ask the question in that way. How do we move forward together? It makes me think of that Hebrew word for peace. Peace we talked about so much in the sermon, the peace that is central to God's desire for us, shalom. In Hebrew, it actually holds more meaning than just peace. It's peace with justice, and it literally means wholeness. So moving forward together requires that we as a collective community seek wholeness in every step forward we take. And let's be honest with here, we don't know what lies before us, and pursuing shalom, peace, wholeness, could quite possibly mean taking a step back from time to time. Despite all the mean things I've said about it and to it, the virus just doesn't take the hint and go away. And so we're learning to live with it. For us as a faith community, shalom means pursuing a right relationship with God, a right relationship with ourselves, a right relationship with each other, a right relationship with our environment and the community around us. So if we want to follow in the way of Jesus, the great physician, then we must honor that Hippocratic oath to do no harm. We as a church have been very aggressive in our handling of this crisis. We were among the first churches in the area to end all in-person gatherings, and we closed our day school for nearly 2 months. It is our pursuit of that shalom that has guided our aggressive stance. After nearly 6 months of researching this novel coronavirus, some consensus around how it spreads and acts is finally beginning to emerge. COVID-19 appears to be primarily an airborne transmission that thrives indoors amongst people in close proximity for extended periods of time. Researchers have estimated that 10% of cases have accounted for 80% of the spread. This means things like offices, events, and large indoor gatherings like worship have been the primary driver of this pandemic. I know we want this virus to go away, but we cannot be naive to the steady rise in the number of cases in our state as sections of our society begin to open up. In Davidson County, the coronavirus has infected 1 in every 91 residents. So moving forward together is complicated, especially if shalom, wholeness, is our goal. Any quick return to in-person worship would certainly leave behind individuals for whom it is too risky for them to attend, or worse yet, would create a sense of obligation or pressure to attend despite it being against their best interests. We are also mindful of the deep need for social and spiritual connectivity during this time. As our state and country begin this process of reopening, our leadership has prepared a phase strategy that honors our core values of radical inclusion and solidarity, ensuring that we move forward together. The first phase is simple. You're in it. It's how we're currently doing church, where all components of life of our congregation are conducted virtually. During this phase, some of our fellowship and life groups have met in person at their own discretion in consultation with leadership, while they do follow good social distancing practices. But as we enter the second phase, some changes begin to happen, and you'll see them there. Smaller groups of individuals are welcome to meet in person. Groups like existing small groups and life groups will be free to meet according to their comfort level, with the expectation that outdoor activities are preferred and the rules of social distancing are followed. We define social distancing as having readily available hand cleaning or sanitizing stations, a venue allowing for at least 6 feet of distance between families, and for individual participants to wear masks. One unique feature of this phase and beyond is for groups to have the option of meeting together on Sunday mornings and participating in the worship live stream together. This is a way that some might be able to experience the communal aspect of worship while minimizing the risk of passing the virus to large groups of people. The church facility will remain closed during phase 2, as these gatherings should all take place in backyards and homes within our community. In phase 3, the restrictions loosen slightly to allow more groups to enjoy semi-regular activities while still maintaining good social distancing practices. In phase 3, the church office and larger facility will officially reopen, but in a limited and case-by-case basis. Any requests to use the facility will be carefully considered and spaced out to ensure minimal exposure. At this time, the session has made no plans to move beyond phase 1. The status of our community and safety concerns are being monitored on a weekly basis. This will inform our decision of when to move forward into each new phase. We are actively consulting with state and local officials, as well as an advisory team that represents healthcare professionals, legal professionals, and other areas of relevant expertise. Whenever a decision or change is made, we will immediately inform the community through all relevant communication channels. The final phase is our next normal, where we go about the mission of the church with zero restrictions. The challenging thing for us right now is that we don't know what the next normal is going to look like. Research has shown that in the wake of disaster, communities initially respond with acts of heroism, and then quickly transition into this honeymoon phase where communities pull together with a sense of optimism that they can get through this together. It's why we, by and large, jumped on board with that cry. You remember the cry to flatten the curve, and cheered and celebrated our first responders. But it feels like now we're out of the COVID-19 honeymoon phase, where we all rolled our sleeves up. We're now drifting into a new phase, one without clear answers, one that you might call the disillusionment phase. After enough time passes, we look around and realize that we're not back to normal, and we're still nowhere close to normal. And that disillusionment sets in. You can feel it in our society right now. The community cohesion around flatten the curve, it's gone. And we're off in our own corners with our own opinions on what's next. And that's when that anxiety and fear and anger that we initially felt at the start starts to reemerge, because we're re-experiencing the crisis again, this time without the honeymoon response. We've weathered the storm, we've had our strange honeymoon, and here we sit conflicted, not knowing what's next. And in this moment, the task before us is the task of reconstructing the church. We are nowhere close to normal. And even if we were, would we really want to return to the same normal? Our task is to reconstruct our community from the lessons we've learned and the things made clear by this tragedy. This phase is about discovering what is and what isn't possible, learning to accept that new reality and taking responsibility for this collective process of recovery. This process of recovery and reconstructing the church starts small. So I'm going to ask you to take up with me some practices during this season as we move from disillusionment to reconstruction. These are things we're going to be reiterating every week and emailing you about and posting online to try to encourage you in. First encouragement's simple. Build up an authentic sense of hope by setting goals for yourself. Simple goals, strange goals, family goals, personal goals, whatever you feel, but make sure that they're goals that you feel are achievable. It's easy right now to be lulled into simply waiting and lose that sense of hope that comes when we feel we have agency to work for and accomplish things. So I'm asking you to believe in and plan for positive changes, not only for yourself, but for us as a community. Even when problems come and our future looks different than expected, this cultivates that authentic hope by setting future goals. It gives us strength to move forward. So start with these small goals for yourself. Second, I know we do this every week, but I'm going to ask you to lean even more into gratitude. It's funny, gratitude is actually a choice. Sure, there's limits of how much we can change our circumstances, but we can choose the way we think about them. So choosing gratitude actually changes the way we experience the world and gives us a sense that there is more to be gained despite what we've lost. So take up the practice of gratitude journaling. Now, I'm telling myself this because I used to do it 2 times a day and I've not done it in months, and I can tell. Set yourself a goal of writing a letter of gratitude a week for someone you appreciate. Take up the practice of having gratitude check-ins with someone a few times a week. Talk and compare gratitude lists. There's many opportunities. Third, focus on being kind to yourself and others. This is another one that hits me close to home because I have been incredibly critical of myself recently. And it gives me this suffocating feeling of being stuck, only being able to look inward. Instead, focus on being kind in a bold new way to both yourself and those that you encounter. So we're going to be doing some kindness challenges together in the coming weeks, some creative ideas of how you can provoke yourself into acts of kindness. Finally, give yourself permission to believe that with God, we can overcome these obstacles together and find our next normal. I'm asking you to believe that God still cares for us in the midst of the suffering, that God has a purpose for us even during this time, that God is with us, giving us courage to confront difficult questions and decisions. The author and poet Wendell Berry told us that the great challenge of our time would be whether we see life as a machine or as a miracle. And this is our challenge and our prophetic witness as a church. The value of human life is not determined on a balance sheet or in maximal displays of personal liberty. No, it's valued in wholeness. And so moving forward together means that we hold wholeness at the center of our community, seeking to leave no one behind while trusting that God who created is still creating new ways to be near us. So my sisters and brothers, may God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and the exploitation of people so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, isolation, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and turn their pain into joy. May God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all God's children.
I need you, you need me. We're all a part of I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. I pray for you, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. I pray for you, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. I pray for you, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive.
Thank you again so much for joining us for worship today. We hope that this was a meaningful experience for you. And before we head out, I just have those few announcements just one more time. So the staff, Shane, Stephen, and I will be taking that little bit of a break this week to rest and to recharge. So I just want to remind you that there will not be a Solidarity service this Wednesday, but we will pick that back up on July 1st at 7 p.m. And if you'd like information about our Solidarity services, head over to hboro.org/solidarity. And then we also invite you to go over to the website for information about our phased reopening strategy. So you can go directly to hboro.org/forward and get more information about that. We also have that survey there that it would be really great if you would fill out for us so that we can hear from you about how you're doing and how we can continue to walk through this season with you. And I mentioned this in the gratitude section today, but if you happen to miss VBS, there's still an opportunity. You can go through all 5 days of that right here on our YouTube channel. So there's no reason to feel like you missed out on anything. And let me tell you, you want to check it out. So we hope that you will do that. So thanks again so much. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.